All right, so good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for registering and making the time to come into the session. My aim this evening is really to provide as much details as possible, answer your questions, etc., on the data professional program, which is something that I compiled as a combination of a lot of different corporate training and my own project experience in data analytics. For pretty much around 20 years or so. All right. And I have seen, of course, we know that data is a big trend. It has been a big trend over the, let's say, roughly the last 5 to 8 years, and it continues to grow. And the need for data professionals, which actually has been promoted online, is that there will be a shortage of data professionals in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years. So the need to increase the data skill, the analytics skill set is really, really necessary because we're going to be collecting a lot of data. We have been collecting a lot of data that hasn't been proven its value. And that is pretty much because of the fact that we are lacking the skill sets generally. All right. So about me, all right. Of course, I'm Karan Ranganesh. Most of you all would have known me from some form of program, whether it be the BSc, MBA, dissertation, corporate training. In some form or fashion, I've always been that data person. And I think most of you all would have heard me preaching about data and the importance of data over the years. So, I'm a huge advocate for data. I've been in it for a year, roughly about 20 years. It sounds like a long time. I didn't even believe it when I was compiling the slide. And yeah, definitely, Kevin. It is critical because if you rely on intuition, intuition could only take you so far, right? Intuition in the form of experience, but things change so quickly, right? How can you track everything to really make those tough decisions? Yeah. And what I've worked in, some of the tools that I've worked in, as you can see there, we have Excel, ever trusty Excel, and I've always put that first. Excel has huge potential as an expert system. We just really underutilize it. All right. So we have a lot of really cool elements within Excel now that allows you to really do some good analytics. It's not a big fancy, let's say movie style type of analytics. But Excel does have the power to give you at least 80% of what you need with regard to, analytical skill. All right. I also worked in Python for a while, Power BI. With regard to programming, Python and R are the two main programming language out there that are really being used for most data analytics projects. Even Power BI, you'll use Python and R inside Power BI, which is also a Microsoft application. I've used Nime, I've used Tableau, I've used Qlik. There are a few others, right, like Alteryx and these other guys that I've worked in. But I think this is like my top team. I think Excel using Python inside Visual Studio Code and Power BI. These are like some really good tools to get you at least 90% of the work done in analytics. So you don't really need all the big fancy proprietary tools. Analytics is really a process, right? Being analytic and thinking as an analytics professional is more of a process, and the tools are what you use along the way. All right. I've been involved in projects both locally and regionally, and also on some EU funded and UN funded projects through CARICOM in the region. All right. And of course, probably about half of them would have required me to utilize data and apply data in some form or fashion. And I know how useful it is and how critical it is to have these skills. All right. So I'll be once you register for the program, I'll be a guide along the way. All right. So you'll be in good hands. All right. There are very few things that I don't know about data. And of course, if you come up with scenarios and you have questions along the way to help you practically, I'm certain we could figure out most of those problems during the program. All right. So let's jump into analytics. Why analytics? And of course, some of you guys already answered the question with regard to why analytics is important, why data is important, and maybe I could get a chime in from some of the guys who kind of now dropped in. Hi Simone, how are you? All is well? You there with us? Could you jump on the mic or yeah?
Hi, Caroline. How are you?
Hi Simone, I'm good. How are things with you?
It's good. It's good. It's good to hear your voice again.
Yes, it's been a while. It's been a while.
It has been.
Yeah. So what? How? What's your perspective on data and analytics?
Well, data and analytics was wonderful about gathering data and analyzing the data is you get to tell a story of based on your historical data that you would have gathered, you can tell you get a picture of what the future would look like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can
So
paint a fair picture. Yeah.
yeah, you can paint a fair picture. You can make predictions from your historical data, and there are all sorts of visualizations that help you to interpret
Mm-hmm.
the the data that you would have gathered.
Yeah.
So data is very important. Data analytics is very important,
Mm-hmm.
especially in this time.
Yes.
In these
Exactly.
times. Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot, Simon, and thanks for coming to the session.
Thank you.
All right. And why should we pay attention to data analytics? And we know that it does allow for finding those solutions. And the big problems that most organizations have, once they collect the right data and massage it in the right way and interpret it correctly, would actually aid them in looking at some of the trends and patterns that would lend to them. And of course, predict or forecast, and then of course determine the conditions upon which they can make changes to see corrective action taking place, right? And of course data analytics can be applied in pretty much every industry, because every industry will generate data in some form or fashion. And I'll tell you right now, for most of you guys who would have chosen career opportunity, personal development, and all these things, employers are looking for that data skill. And data analytics, kind of doing this program is not only going to develop your technical skill in terms of, okay, you'll understand analytics, you'll learn some tools and get some really good technical skills, but understanding the analytics process will also develop a lot of soft skills. And we will talk about some of those a bit later in some of the slides I have coming up. So it is a holistic development program. It's not just about, technical skills. And I remember somebody asking me, do I need to have heavy technical skills to come into this program? I told them no, because this really starts from scratch. And if you know nothing about data, like you don't even know what's the difference between an interval and a ratio, or you've never heard about standard deviation or really understand what it is, we're gonna cover all of that. And very light, very easy to understand. I think most of you all who know my facilitation style is very easygoing, is not going to be difficult or highly technical. My aim is to really drive you all down a path where you all will develop these practical skills, where you could actually go after a session and say, hey, I have some data, let me work on that and see what I could get from it. Right. So it's not one of those, highly theoretical courses. Of course, we will have sessions where we'll have discussions and we have to understand certain concepts before we apply them. But my aim is to really give you all a lot of hands-on experience with some of these tools, get your feet wet so that you'll understand it at a level well enough so that you could go and explore even further after this program is over. All right. So that really is my aim for you all, because we are very difficult to find, people with really good analytic skills. So I think, we really need it out there in the workforce. All right. There's some interesting stats here in terms of, let's say skills. A lot, this was a Gartner survey a couple of years ago, and many organizations, look at this here, 64% of organizations actually highlight the fact that they lack technical and data capabilities in their workforce. They need that, because if you notice something, they aren't actually using the data. And part of that reason why they aren't using the data is because they don't have the skills. All right. And watch, one of the interesting points here is that 94% of these businesses who fill out the survey actually highlighted the fact that data is essential and analytics skill would be essential for their business growth. So they've accepted the fact that it is very, very important. But right now, they don't have the skill set. They don't have people using the data that they should be using it. And there's a lot of issues and a lot of hindrances inside businesses. And I think Rodney was sharing the pain with regard to, you know, how public sector don't really utilize the data that they have as well. So it does come as a point of frustration, but of course, you know, you have the skill, and within, you can start it within your process area, you know, look at your data, try to find ways to make things better for you. And as you start sharing and telling the stories with your data, it will slowly start to erode and create that change that you're looking for, where people start to appreciate data, and then they would be able to drive it and appreciate it, you know. So that's pretty much how important it is. And I know that, you know, look at this slide here where we have data all around us. I know that everyone in this room would have interacted or created data along one or maybe even all of these factors, or all of these quadrants where data is generated all around us. So think about it. Learning data on your scores, your performance, your assignments, your when you submitted assignments, etc. Whether you got a first class honors, upper seconds, commendation, your social presence. Is there anyone here who's not on any social platform at all? And even if you say no, if you're on WhatsApp, your data is still being collected, right? In terms of all your chat logs. And did anybody ever do a WhatsApp group analysis? I'll probably see if I find that link and share it with you all. Where, you know, if you're in a WhatsApp group, you could just go to that link and upload the chat log from your group, and they'll give you full analytics in with regard to who was the most talkative person, when you're usually the busiest, was your peak time for chatting, and that kind of thing. So it's some really interesting insight in terms of the behavior of your group. And some of the results might actually surprise you, right? So it's really good when you get that kind of insight from the everyday things that you do, because, you know, it really does help drive your decision making, all right? What about wearable devices? Anybody has a wearable device that they're using right now? How many people are using wearable devices for like exercise, track your heart rate, sleep time, and stuff like that? Anybody in the room? Yeah?
Yeah, I use one for running.
Ah, okay, cool one. Nice. All right. And what about work? Anybody, okay, cool, Ronnie. Anybody, you know that you generate data with all the work that you do, right? And you know, the processes and the reports that you're submitting, the everyday operational data. And of course, that would determine, you know, how effective you are at work. And that should actually be part of, you know, performance measures for you. You know, like I'm involved in programs where we use like Balanced Scorecard for strategic performance. And there's a lot of little KPIs and measures that we would utilize that would determine effectiveness of staff, right? And of course, the data will be compiled and utilized so that we have a very objective perspective of, you know, what's happening within the workplace, right? So we all have data all around us. Anybody's familiar with, you know, contributing data or interacting with data along all 4 of these quadrants? Who knows how they interact or add towards data on all of these quadrants? Anybody in the room? And the biometric stuff doesn't only have to be like wearables, eh? Biometric data is also collected from your phone and stuff. Don't you all use your fingerprint to open your phone? That's biometric data. Yeah, Kristen?
I was just gonna agree. I was gonna say.
Ah, okay. Anna?
No, I don't use my fingerprint to my phone.
Oh, what do you use? The passcode?
Yeah, passcode.
All right. Ole, don't listen to Anna, you know, people want to have your fingers on. Right? Yeah, so you know, data is all around us, and we can't ignore it, and it's being generated at such a pace that at some point in time we would want to take a look at it. And oh, okay, cool, the Face ID. All right, nice. Yeah. So now that we've looked at data, let's have a little chat, right? Let's have a little exercise. Let me see how you all think about data. So we have a laptop, right? And can you look at, you know, 3 attributes that may be useful for one of the following groups? So you could probably like pick one of these groups, you know, kind of choose one in your head. Okay, an IT technician. Oh, and here we're going on. For my technical people, don't pick IT tech. Eh? It might be too easy for you. Challenge yourself a little bit. Think of, you know, being a marketing professional or being a parent. What characteristics would you want this laptop to have? What would you be looking for, you know, in terms of, you know, the details of this laptop? What would you be looking for if you are an IT tech, if you are a marketing professional, or if you are a parent? Think about it and maybe toss some stuff in on the chat, right? Okay, password protection, right? So what kind of security features it has, right? And Simone, you are thinking as what, a tech? As a parent security?
Maybe as a parent.
Okay, all right. Yeah, for your kids, you know, you want to make sure that that you have that covered. Okay, right, the amount of memory it has, or you know, of course, that will tie back to performance. What are you thinking as Addis? Welcome, Addis.
Hi,
All right, thank you for coming. What are you? Which group are you?
well, both the marketing professional and parents, because you need
Okay.
to save data, schoolwork. Now we had the online sessions for the kids, so
Right,
you
right.
know.
So Addis, you have to give me 6 attributes then.
Yeah.
For 2 groups. Right?
And-
Yes. Okay, thanks a lot, Addis. Yeah.
No problem.
Thanks for contributing. All right. Kusma parents, so security cost, RAM, hard drive size. Okay, cool. Right. Look, Kusma help you out there. She added extra attribute to help you out.
Yes.
Yes, I'm seeing parental restriction privilege, the interface. Okay, cool. For marketing, you look for the database option to store data. Yeah, no problem. Yes, this will be recorded and it'll be uploaded. All right. So if you have to step away, I'll share the link with the recording. Yeah. All right. Let's see, marketing, brand, strengths of the product, cost. Perfect, Maurice. Yeah, definitely. And you'll notice that, sure thing. Let's see. Storage, password protection, ease of connectivity for research. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, probably yeah, the connectivity options or the capability. Yeah, that could work, definitely work. And if you all notice something, each one of these groups will look at something slightly different. Yeah, durable hardware, yes, from any view. Yeah, durability for sure. And I think maybe even the marketing persons might use that as one of their top 3, because if they're trying to promote this product in terms of something being useful for others, they would definitely want to have data on that to prove it within their ad campaign and these things too, right? Right, Nivai? So it's certainly something that while we're gonna have a lot of overlap with certain attributes across these different groups, there are certain attributes that might be very specific towards, you know, a group. So like think about this, like maybe let's say we have brand, you know, what are some of the other attributes? We have the brand of the laptop, the model, we have the weight. Who might be more concerned about the weight of the product? The weight. Which group you all think would be most concerned about the weight of this product? The parent, right? Because the child has to move this thing around, right? Right? What else we have? We have the amount of ports. So how much ports it has, how much USB, what type of USB, what HDMI, etc. These would be useful for the IT techs, right? For connectivity. It might even be for the marketing professionals to promote connectivity. Mobile users, if you're a marketing, oh yeah, okay, cool, yeah, right? What about the operating system? The operating system of the laptop is also data that we're collecting, right? The latest features, right? The IT techs will be concerned about the operating system because they're gonna have to maintain it, yeah? So whether it's using Windows 10, Windows 11, Windows 7, right? So you realize that there are certain attributes that will be more useful for certain groups than for others. And this is why when you're thinking about data, it's very important to have that data mindset. Because when you're having a conversation with someone about data in their organization within a process, you know, they're saying there's a problem with this process, there's some limitations that they're encountering. You would have to have that data mindset to start thinking about, okay, what are the questions we need answered? And then, you know, translate that into what data do you need, right? What data would we need to get the answers to the questions that we are asking right now from this process, right? So let's see, IT techs, type of demographic for graphic professionals. Oh yeah, who it's useful for, right? Who would be the target audience for it? Because if you are if you have to give this to a graphic designer or a networking professional or a cybersecurity professional or a developer, you're going to require certain types of hardware and of course software, right? So yeah, that's pretty important. So thanks for that, Maurice. Right? So you all see when you're thinking about a scenario and you're looking at an object is not simply an object. So an object like a laptop, there's so many attributes. But while we aren't going to be utilizing all of these attributes, we need to decide which data would be useful for us. And that, my friends, is what the data mindset is all about. Getting your headspace into what do we need to get answered. And then, of course, what data would we need to drive those answers, right? To answer the questions. Yeah. So this is a really interesting exercise. Maybe you could choose a random object and start thinking about it from a data perspective. What kind of data is generated by this item? And who would really find that useful? Who's gonna be utilizing that data? And it kind of gets you into the data mindset. Start thinking data all the time, right? That's what I do all the time, right? So I'm just kind of sharing with you all my little perspective on how to get yourself into that data mindset. Yeah. What you all think about the exercise? It change your mindset a little bit, or you all think about data a little differently? What you all think? No? Yeah? No? Maybe? Yeah?
Yeah,
It goes
yeah.
to
yeah,
show,
good.
Somewhat a
it
bit.
goes to show the number of perspectives
Yes.
that you could have on one item,
Yeah.
all right, based
Definitely.
on use.
Correct. Yeah, it does have you thinking, because we take a lot of things for granted, right? And we only start thinking data only when we encounter problems and stuff. So when you have that data mindset, it inherently, what happens? When you are doing your work process, you are gonna find yourself opening up Excel sheets and just tracking little things and dumping data, in little worksheets and things. So you'll end up with your documents folder filled with these little worksheets all over the place, because you start realizing that, over a period of time, you might have questions about what you're doing and the process and whether you're being efficient or whether you could do it better. And you'll start realizing, okay, I need to collect this data from now. So it really drives that data appreciation. And then over a period of time, you look back on it, you do a bit of analysis and you realize, oh, okay, cool, these are some limitations, or these are the things I'm doing well. And I'm telling you all, as a professional, I have done that. And you start improving yourself. You don't need anyone telling you, hey, you need to do better. You would be driving yourself, as well as any processes that you are involved in. So getting that data mindset in, it really is useful. There's no downside to it. All right, so happy to share this little exercise with you all, and hopefully you get into that and you'll start seeing the benefit of it. So I just want to share some of the registration data. So you all probably found it weird, you got all these weird questions when you were signing up, right? And you're all wondering, what's Karen thinking? Why do I need to answer all these questions? Yeah. Yeah, Maurice, it is. Data is subjective and it's based on what is the goal? What are you seeking to achieve? And data from, let's say, one source is subjective, but when we think of like one source, that is an opinion in the general sense. But when you collect 1,000 or 10,000 records, like let's say from a survey, it becomes objective, because it becomes, this is the trend, or this is the pattern of thought, this is the pattern of opinion. And that subjectivity actually becomes objective data, right? So yeah, it really depends, Maurice, on where it's collected, who collects it, why they're collecting it. Yeah, so there's a lot of questions that need to be answered before, organizations or individuals start collecting data, right? So we had a nice mix of registrants for this cycle. We're looking at, just a 3% variance with regard to, the male-female demographic. Right, so guys, happy to see that the ladies coming into this thing, because we all know that tech has always been a bit male dominated. So I'm happy to get the ladies coming in, because I'll tell you all this, I've worked with a lot of females in tech as well, and to me there's no difference between gender when it comes to technical work, because I've seen some real stars in both genders across the years, right? So of course, other things, I looked at, the distribution of the data. If you look at the bottom the bottom right corner. So the average age was 37.2 years and the median age was 39. And if you all understand, these are what we'll call measures of central tendency in terms of the central points of the data, right? And this little variance between these two guys, well, of course, it shows that there's a little skew in the data, all right? And these are some of the things that we will actually cover in terms of how do we calculate these things. So like the standard deviation is 9.3 years. Could anybody tell me what does that mean? Does anybody know what that 9.3 years really means? Anybody want to guess, Kristen?
I think it's the negative and positive distance from the mean.
Ah, boy, Kristen. What do I usually give people? Ah, there we go. What do I usually give people when they give me a really good answer that I'm impressed with? Who could remember? Who could remember? Let me see. Yo, come on, give the guy a snack now. Give the guy a snack. Come, Rodney, give the man a
Yeah, I remember.
Was a snack? Wasn't I sharing snacks back in the day? I think I still share snacks. Right?
I think so.
That man work for a snack, boy. The man come good. Right? Look, Maurice wants a snack there too. Right? And what we're looking at is really the spread, because what standard deviation is really a measure of dispersion or spread. So we really saying here what's going on. If the average is 37.2 years, or let's say the median is 39 years, the spread of ages across everybody in this group or everybody who registered for this info session is between 30 and 48 years old, right? So that it gives us a really good idea of the range of our data and the general spread of our data, right? So these are some simple things that we'll get. And these are basically some little distribution curves. So we see in the male and the female. So we see that, you know, in the 36 to 45 year range, you know, there are much less females in that age group, but they both kind of peak around 26 to 35 years old. So you see, by simple things like this, we can get a lot of insight from, you know, what the actual data is looking like. So whether you have 3,000, 10,000, or 200 records, we could actually do something like this in like 5 minutes. You could do stuff like this in 5 minutes and get a lot of insight in terms of what the data really has in it. You know, and all of this is stuff that we do in the foundation stage, which is the early stage, just to get your feet wet to understand data. You know, it's not just a whole bunch of records. It's really a bunch of meaning, a lot of meaning that that we can get from it in the early stages that will prep ourselves, to learn towards, you know, the analytics where we start to interpret it now and look for the patterns. But this will give us like the general characteristics. This is like, you know, how I have demographics here. This will be like the demographics of your data. All right. And then of course, one other interesting little stat that I picked up from the data also is that 84% of the respondents are working full time. And this is pretty much why I have this program running on evenings, right? So it's a 2-hour session once a week. For this cycle is pretty much on a Tuesday evening, just for 2 hours, you know, 6 to 8, so that, you know, and look, the data actually has helped me, you know, foment that decision because of the fact that, you know, these guys, you know, most of you guys are working full time. And another interesting stat that I didn't put on the screen here is that over 67% of the respondents working full time are looking for career opportunities. So it means that, you know, you are looking for, you know, you're doing what you're doing, but you want to do it better. And of course, by doing it better and improving your skill set, it would open you up for more career opportunities. So you know, this is how we start interpreting the data, seeing some of the patterns that the data will give us. And I just kind of showed a few, because if I start digging into, you know, the real analytics there, it will take a while. But these are just some of the main points in terms of just giving you all an idea of, you know, how people are responding. Where do, you know, and think about yourself, where do you fit in here? You know, are you really part of that, you know, central tendency in terms of the mean and median, or are you spread on the upper or lower quadrants, or the interquartile ranges for the data? You know, where do you fall? You know, and it really does help, you know, put you and where you are in perspective, right? So some other interesting stuff here too. When we look at, you know, the variant data components, and this is tied back to a question, yeah, Rodney, right? Yeah, back in time, right? Yeah, and look, we know it's back in time because, you know, if it was a bit more modern, you would have said CSEC maths, right? Instead of CXC. So the data components, this was the question where I asked, how interested are you in some of these topics? And all of these topics would be present within the program. So we're looking at the different tools, we are looking at the analytics, we are looking at the visualization, we are looking at storytelling, and of course, we're looking at governance as the last one here with the shield. And if you look at it, we see in visualization getting the highest level of interest, right? So what I did, I just kind of explained what I did here, where we're looking at anybody who selected very interested or extremely interested, so more on the positive scale of what we'll call a Likert scale. So I will tell you all about, you know, Likert scales and weighted averages and all this cool stuff that you'll use to actually generate some of these aggregated data values, right? So we're seeing that, you know, the highest interest level was on visualization. And then of course we had a little split here between the tools and the actual analytics, which is pretty interesting too. And what's another point here, over 57% of those folks who actually chose very or extremely interested in the tools actually had no proficiency in about 2 or more of the data analysis tools that I would have highlighted in the survey as well. All right, so you know, it really shows that yes, there is a bit of a correlation between these two guys here, right? And there's about 83% of the respondents who would have selected very interested or extremely interested in these two areas, were also interested in data science as an additional course. So you're seeing that there's a lot of relationships here among the data. And if you just look at a record, you know, if you just look at one raw record from that form entry, you are not gonna see these kinds of patterns. So some of the things that I did to get to this point, I will also show you all. How do you get to this point where you can tell the story and show these relationships and then further drive that back to answer a big burning question that an organization may have or that you may have from your own data. All right, how's it looking so far, guys? Where are you all on the spectrum? Did you all choose visualization more than the others? Or what were your preferences? Are they any different from this, your individual preferences? Anybody chose differently from what this pattern is showing me? Don't afraid. Don't afraid to share. Now that you recall, anybody thought that governance was more important than the others? Anybody chose governance higher than the others because this one got the low? Yeah, Kristan.
I think I chose governance higher than I chose visualization. And that's it. I can't remember my choice exactly.
Right. Yeah, you know, but there's just a compilation of about, it was about like maybe 65 people registered to this session. So this is the aggregate figures from about 60, 62, 63 entries. All right. So of course, as an individual, you may have some slightly different values, but this is just looking at the aggregates from the sample. All right. So other interesting stuff here, the tools. So where I was just highlighting that, you know, 57% of those who chose very or extremely interested in the tools, right? Over 57% of you guys had no proficiency in at least 2 of these analytical tools. And it's no surprise, guys, Excel had the highest level of proficiency, where, you know, you all would have chosen intermediate, advanced, or expert level within the tools. Excel had 73% of you guys, you know, up at that high level, which is not surprising because we all have Excel on our devices. We use them on a daily basis to some extent. Some of us have additional training on them. What was also interesting is that Python and VS Code, over 67% of the respondents had no proficiency, like none. You chose none in terms of your level of proficiency. And Python is a really, what can I say? It's a really useful tool, right? And it goes to show that we have all these tools around, and all these guys are free. All these are free. All these are free tools. And, you know, we just highlighting the fact that, you know, we have all these cool tools around, but, you know, there's not enough, you know, what can I say? Not only interest, but awareness that these tools are there and these tools can be used. Now, guys, this is a little lesson, a quick lesson in terms of how we apply storytelling. So what you will learn is that there's one little point within data storytelling in that I think some of you are probably wondering why I didn't put like values for these two over here. Did anybody wonder why, hey, how come I'm not seeing any kind of values for Power BI and etc.? What do you all think? Anybody else wondering that? Was anybody wondering that? Like, how come I didn't put any figures here, but I put figures over here on these two guys? It's a little,
Yeah, I was wondering that.
yeah, okay. It's a little, it's a technique when you are doing data storytelling, in that you allow for focus. You isolate and you focus. So like I did two things. I isolated the fact that, you know, a lot of people are proficient in Excel, which is of course not surprising, and that's a good thing. But I also highlighted the fact that, listen, this Python, the programming language of Python, had the highest level of none in terms of proficiency. So we've highlighted, I've isolated and generated focus on the story. So the story is, we have a lot of access to tools that we could use, but hence we also have, probably because of lack of awareness or you know, thinking that it's too technical to learn, etc. So that hesitation would have led towards no proficiency in this in the Python programming language. So when you are telling a story with data, you don't have to show everything, because the questions might be, okay, what do people know? What do they know really well that we could say, okay, we're comfortable with it? But what was the most critical application or skill set that they need to know that they don't? So the story now will highlight what we know well or what we know good enough, but what we need to really kind of focus on, you know, it's something that we need to bridge the gap. The gap here is the most evident gap that we have with the data. So a little lesson in data storytelling is that you don't need to show everything, but you need to highlight and add focus to where you need to tell the story, because you don't want your audience to get lost in looking at all the other data around. And if you all notice how my slides are as well, there's a lot of white space, right? You don't use a lot of words, right? You will discuss, but you use your visuals. And also, if you all notice, I use color. So color highlighted, you know, green is a positive thing. Red is a slightly negative thing. So just the use of color as well would highlight certain things to you all, right? Wouldn't that have stood out to you all that, oh, this is a good thing and this is a bad thing? And it was so fortunate that, you know, Excel's color is also green, right? So everything kind of aligned well enough. Yeah, exactly, right? That's the psychology, and that's what UI does, right? And of course UX, because it allows you to have a really good experience when interacting with graphics, interacting with any kind of layout that is not too clustered, is not too congested. It's easy to focus so that you could listen to what I'm saying without being distracted by the contents of the graphic, right? And the graphic will accentuate the message that I'm giving you, because visual cues have always been our most effective learning tool, right? And evolution has proven that for us, because that's how we actually survive up to this point. Yeah. So yeah. So this is did anybody in this group here choose intermediate or higher for Python? Who's actually in that 33% here that would have said, hey, I have intermediate, advanced, or expert level in Python? Anybody in the room here? Anybody in that minority? No?
I believe I did.
Ah, okay. So you have what? Intermediate, advanced, or expert?
Intermediate.
Ah, okay, good. So you see, guys, I know who to kind of pick on, right? To help us when we do our exercises and so on. All right, so let's look at what the program actually is doing. Exactly, Rodney, exactly. So let's look at the program, and the program has 3 stages or 3 modules. And the first module is the data foundations module, and this is where we focus on assessing data. And when we assess data, we look at, you know, of course, looking at different data types. So we're looking at nominal data, numeric data, etc. Right? We look at binary data and ordinal data. You know, data comes in many forms, right? And then, of course, how do we measure them? So just like what I did earlier with standard deviation, you know, we look at the tool pack that there is in Excel, and start looking at how do we measure data and get that holistic perspective on the data that we have. And then, of course, preparing it for analysis. So we use a couple tools within Excel to start preparing data. And of course, I'll show you all how you can actually prepare data in apps like Power BI, in VS Code using Python. So it's a very similar process, but of course, we will only kind of use Excel in the foundations just to get your feet wet, you know, a tool that you're comfortable with, and show you some of the interesting little tools and features within Excel that you probably never even thought about or never even looked at, all right, to actually prepare data for analysis. So that lends towards the input, all right? And with the input now coming in, this is where we start to process data. So the center where we have that data analysis stage, this is where we will look at data and start analyzing it, start to look for the patterns and trends, and start to interpret certain findings that we'll get from the data, allowing the data to speak to us rather than just kind of jump in and follow this cookie cutter pattern of, you know, let's say you're using Python to do certain things and you kind of run a mill commands and get in the output. But how do we interpret the output to get to what we really need from the data, to allow the data to tell us what it's saying, right? And this is where we'll do this is what you'll call exploratory data analysis, or EDA, right? And we'll use the tools such as Power BI and of course VS Code, Visual Studio Code, with Python, right? And of course with Python, this is where we'll use a lot of these different data libraries that Python has built in, such as, you know, pandas and NumPy, etc., where we would use those to explore the data and get a lot of really good insight on it, all right? So this stage really is where we get very hands-on with the tools. We will talk about different levels of analytics as well, and how do we go from, you know, identifying the patterns and trends to then forecasting. So I'll tell you all this in one line. Analytics is all about the past and the future. So there are 4 different types of analytics. 2 focus on the past, like what's happening, why is it happening like that? And 2 will focus on the future, like what would continue to happen if we don't change anything, and what we need to change to make it better, all right? And guys, that's the simplest way to talk about the 4 different types of analytics that you'll be exposed to, all right? And of course, we will just discuss that further, but I'm certain that you guys would have heard those terms before, and I'll say it now. So we have descriptive analytics, we have predictive analytics, and I know that you would have heard that all over the place in different conversations, but what I just explained there is really all 4, which includes diagnostic and prescriptive analytics. So they sound very complex, they sound, you know, very difficult to master, but they aren't once you have the right mindset and understand why we need them, why we would use them. All right, so analytics really isn't as difficult as you think. It's all about understanding what you need from the data and why you need it, so that it allows you to focus, not to get lost in the ocean of data that's being generated, but, you know, being able to focus on a core question, like a business question, for some kind of outcome or some kind of insight to make your decision, and then you follow the process. And when we interpret the results, you know, we get these results and we interpret it, how do we share that? So the final stage is really tying back towards visualization and storytelling. So it's all about the nice soft skills of communication and understanding the concept of storytelling. How do we tell a story? How do we drive that impact to influence decision making and support the decisions and the outcomes? All right. And of course, data governance must be part of the discussion, because we have to control, you know, things like privacy, confidentiality, who's making decisions on the data, why are we you know, collecting and interpreting this data. So all of these concepts now, while governance is throughout, you know, it envelops this entire program, I just kind of dropped it at the end because these are the considerations you need to make for every single project you're involved in. All right, what data you're collecting, why you're collecting it, who's it for, what's the purpose, are you collecting relevant data, don't collect personal data unless you're really using it, and how are you disposing of it, because you have to protect people's privacy, etc. Right? So this is where you become a data professional, because it's not just only technical stuff here. You would be taking your technical skill and, you know, molding that around your soft skills and tying it back towards the business. And this is where your real value comes in as a data professional, because you could be crunching data, you know, every day, all day, and getting results, but how do you take those interpretations to really drive decision making in your organization or to improve yourself? All right, so the visualization and storytelling is a real critical skill that not a lot of people have as well, right? So I know people who are really technical, but they're afraid of the speaking, they're afraid of going in front of people, they're afraid of driving, things like that. We are gonna work on some of that. So I'll give you all some decent tips in terms of, public speaking, how to think about it, some tips and tricks on how to master that. And, all that comes in as part of this. So as I said, you're not gonna find this kind of combination anywhere, because I've realized based on all the gaps I've noticed over the years, that's how I did most of these as separate corporate training. But I decided just to kind of pull everything together, because it's a very holistic pathway for you to get into the area, to understand it, appreciate it, and then drive it as you're going forward, right? So I'm hoping that this unique combination will add value, and that you'll see any kind of value you could get from in being involved in something like this, right? Of course, let's talk about some of the other practical skills that will be tied up in here. So I was just talking about the soft skills, right? So things like attention to details, critical thinking, communication, problem solving, and of course, decision making at the end, right? So these are some real critical soft skills that you will develop even if you are not a technical professional. These are the inherent skills that you get by having a data analytics qualification or certificate, all right? You have proven, if you can handle analytics, you have proven you have developed these soft skills, right? Because without these soft skills, you are not gonna be a really good analytics professional, right? And with regard to the technical skills that you're gonna get, of course, MS Excel, that's definitely one. So you're gonna enhance whatever you know about Excel, because some of the tools that I've shown to other people, some of these guys were like advanced Excel users, and they never even use some of those tools, and they didn't even realize how powerful they were, right? So like some of the power tools in the Power Kit and the data analytics toolkit and that kind of stuff, they hardly use those things. So these are really, really powerful with regard to analytics, and we're gonna do a lot of that in the foundations module. Of course, next we're gonna jump into VS Code and of course Power BI, right? Those are two of the other core applications that we're gonna use. So we will be exploring data. We will be going through the entire analytics process using these two tools, right? And then of course, for the visualization and storytelling, we're gonna build some dashboards in Power BI and be able to use the theories and the concepts that I'll show you all to really tell a story with the data that you're exploring, so that you could help the decision makers make the best decision possible, and of course the most impactful decision that they can, right? So it is across 12 weeks, so it'd be pretty much like a 3-month program, and in 3 months we will be covering all these things. It sounds like a lot, but you'll realize that once you get your feet wet, it is not as difficult as you think. All right, so it's very, very manageable, and I've taught a lot of teams, some that were highly technical, yes, that they learned a lot from the soft skills, but then others who were like not in the tech field. So I'm talking about even HR people, right, who are on the other side of the spectrum, and teaching them some of these skills, it really helped them a lot, and they appreciated it. So I know that even people who told me that they were tech ignorant or tech adverse or tech blight, I've heard all these terms, right? And after simple corporate training like these, they were able to really utilize data and understand it well enough to be able to get value from it. So if they can do it, pretty much anybody could do it. All right. So let's kind of jump into what the program is all about. All right. So as I was saying, the foundations, the analysis, and the visualization and storytelling modules, now they all come as one package as a data professional pathway, which is what I think is a holistic development program. But of course, you could register for any one of the modules as you go along. If you don't want to, kind of jump into the full program, you could jump into each module if you see fit, right? But if it is, you actually like register for the overall program, you'll actually be able to use this code and get a discount when you register, all right? So these sessions would really be on a Tuesday. So it's on a Tuesday evening from 6 to 8, and it's pretty much once a week. So I know that a lot of people working, I know a lot of people don't really have, heavy time to invest in development opportunities, but 2 hours for the week is very manageable. And if you kind of do some of the little legwork afterwards, I'll tell you, maybe check out this, so I'll give you something to do. It's not mandatory, but you could spend a couple of hours doing that for the most, and that's pretty much covering you for the week as you continue developing your skills. And then of course, the more hours you spend outside doing the exploration, doing the digging, you know, the faster you'll develop some of these skills, because the aim is really to get everyone to a level where they understand and appreciate and they will have the ability to use the tools. You know, but after that, to continue developing your skill, you would want to continue exploring and building. And of course, you can reach out to me anytime. As most of you all know, I'm always easy to reach out to. You know, you could always just touch base and ask some questions. You want to get some more advice to do more work. You want to explore more tools. All of these things, I don't mind sharing that information at all. Because I love the fact if somebody's passionate about learning something, I would always try my best to help them out with that. All right. And for most of you all who probably did some kind of exploration on other analytics programs, you'll realize that these guys charging a ton of money because of the fact that this is a hot topic. This is something that's out there. It's something that everybody is demanding. So, you know, universities, different schools, colleges, taking the opportunity to build similar programs, not always holistic, not as holistic. They kind of break it out into like 3 or 4 separate programs, and they're charging a ton of money. So I don't want it to be like that. For most of y'all, you all know me as somebody who I'm not really in it for the money, but there is time and effort that goes into creating it, and of course facilitating and trying to drive it. So of course there must be a cost attached, and I try to kind of keep it as low as possible so that it could still be feasible. You know, so that if I get a smaller group, I can still say, okay, I can work with it. You know, but I'm telling you guys, there's a lot of time and effort that was put into creating something like this to make it as easy, as digestible as possible, because you realize that many programs will really get very technical with the stats, get very technical with the tools, where, you know, whereas a professional don't need all of that. Not at this point in time, you know. Get your feet wet, understand the holistic process, understand the tools so that you can start using it. And then as you start using it, this is where you start digging into more and more. But unless you have the confidence to dig into it from an early level, right, you aren't gonna continue exploring as you continue on your journey, because everybody will have their journey with data, right? And this is why, you know, even for those who continue learning, I have continued the path, because I have some more things coming up. Like once you complete this program and you start exploring some more, I'm actually building out some more stuff on data science. So I have another little pathway that I'm building on top of this that will explore, you know, just the entry-level data science stuff, which in itself is not as difficult to. The difficulty is really in interpreting what you get and how do you, anybody in this room was in my data mining and visualization module for the BSc program? I'm trying to remember. Ronnie, you were in that? I'm trying to remember if you were in that. Simone, I think you were in that as well.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, where we looked at the confusion matrix and those things. We looked at different models and classification. Yeah. Yes, and NEMA as well, right? Yeah, right. And you know, when you look at some of those things are still applicable within data science now. So you'll realize that they aren't heavily complex topics, but unless you get somebody to kind of walk you through what it is and explain it to you, unless you get it, you aren't gonna be comfortable with it. And as I said, these things are not very difficult, but you need to kind of spend the time and get the right explanation, the right context to it. And this is also what happens with data. So applying the right context towards what you are doing, it will help you level up as you go. So as you can see, you know, the foundations will build you with the core data knowledge, the basic data knowledge about your data, how your data is represented and how to prepare it. Then you do the analytics, you use the right tools to get the patterns and the trends and do some predictions if necessary, that will give you that insight and allow you to interpret what's happening, you know, with the process that you are analyzing through the data. And then of course, be able to tell the story, communicate it to the right stakeholders, to get the decision makers to make the right decisions or the best decisions possible, right? And then of course, we could go further into, you know, as your decision makers get more enthused with, you know, the results that they get, they would want more from it. And this is where the data science component comes in, because data science focuses more on the forecasting and predictions, right? And the classification side of things. So it would use what we gather from the past, right? What we interpret from the past to help generate more for the future. to help drive better decision making or more complex decisions. And of course, storytelling and visualization will always be at the center of it all, because you have to be able to communicate to your stakeholders and be able to build that soft skill and that whole group of soft skills to be able to share that and become that bridge between some of the little technical things you're doing around data and the more business related type of considerations that has to be made when it comes to making those final decisions to benefit a business. All right, so I also have some other stuff too, public speaking, React, Power BI, for those who would want to explore Power BI in much more detail, and we'll cover in this course. And then of course, building dashboards out, building them out, whether it be in PHP or in some kind of web interface, even in Power BI as well, right? So there are quite a number of concepts and considerations that you'll need to know when it comes to building effective dashboards, dashboards that help people, get that really good oversight of data and help them make the decisions that they need to make from it, right? So these are just some of the things I'll be pushing them out ever so often whenever I get the time to just really flesh them out properly and toss them out. And but the data professional part has always been my baby. I think for those who know me well, data will always be part of my discussion with you all. And I think this is a really integral program, and it's something that you need, right? So I think I've spoken enough, and that's the final slide. So any takeaways from you guys? Any comments, insight, feedback? It'll be great to hear from you guys. For me to collect more mental data. What do you all think about the program? And of course, it's gonna start. The aim is to start it from August 9th, so you have like over a month. It's about a month away. Oh, thanks, Alice. All right. And here's the link. I will also send you all an email after, on the same thread where I had sent the webinar details. I will also send an email, with this link, etc., for you all to jump in. All right, and register. Now thanks, Kevin. The registration form, guys, is a little longer than this info session form, right? And there's a reason why I've asked a whole bunch of weird random questions in that one, because my aim is, you see, when we in the analysis phase, we are going to do some analytics on that registration data. So you will actually get data in a form that you were involved in contributing towards. And we would look at what are some of the patterns and trends of those who registered to the program. Yeah. So we will be working on some of the exercises on our own data. How interesting is that? Right? Thanks, Anastasia. Yeah. And as I said, knowledge and personal growth, data is all around us. And it's so interesting when you start thinking data, you're gonna find yourself exploring data on all kinds of weird things, and you'll get so much insight. And this is what happened to me in the early days, right? And that is what got me so enthused with data. And I have never stopped exploring it, and I've never stopped advocating the importance of data, in our everyday lives, in our work, at school, etc. So I would really encourage like anybody to sign up to the program to really get their feet wet, and it's really affordable from some of the feedback I've been getting. People. Yes, Kristen.
Oh no, you could have finished, because I have a question, but it's a kind of long question. So.
Oh no, you could go ahead. I'm fine with that.
All right. Okay. So. I agree. The program actually is very, very affordable, because I have been doing research. As I would have mentioned earlier, I have somewhat of a background in teaching myself certain data analytic tools. Nice. So that's how I know like Python, Excel, Power BI to a certain extent, some SQL, but SQL. But one of the things is, because I am not from a computer science background, it's very difficult to break into the field with this knowledge, because I've been trying to build like a data industry network on my LinkedIn, and I've been like messaging people who, let's say, they're like programmers in banks or those kind of stuff, and a lot of them, they have like computer science background, So a lot of time they just, when they graduate, they more or less get taken, or sometimes they just go, like they would do an internship during the computer science degree, and then they would just go back after they graduate, and that's how they would like
Right.
get in through there. Some of them would start
Okay.
as something
Understood.
more computer science based.
Yeah, understood. But analytics itself is not necessarily a technical. I don't necessarily need a technical background to become an analytics professional. Some of these guys who are influencers on LinkedIn right now, who are in data science, etc., they didn't have technical backgrounds. Some of these guys are actually like astrophysicists and that kind of thing. So some kind of STEM background might be handy, but analytics is a skill that you can develop, from scratch. And well, find me on LinkedIn and just connect with me, and I'll try
Yeah,
to
already
get
sent
you.
you a connection.
Okay,
request.
cool. So I'll liaise with you, and I'll find some ways in which I can help you, join the right groups and give you some advice, etc. Yes, Adrian, this course will be virtual. It'll be on Zoom, basically just like this. So we'll have a session once a week on Zoom, and I'll toss the recordings. I'll have a space for them, a nice private space for them, that you all could go and access it. And I'll also have resources such as exercise files, data files, and instructional documents on how to like install some of the software and some of the exercises we'll be doing. I'll also be creating manuals so that you can have that document to work on the same thing over and over and get your practice in, or even use the same steps and apply it towards other data that you may have. So, you're gonna come out with manuals that can help you practice your skills. And then at the end of it, you have real results from data sets that you would use, or even from the exercises that we have. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, Karen,
Yes.
I just want to, so I just want to say from my point of view, or where I'm at right now, my challenge is that we work with an international vendor. And well, we have a local vendor now that is trying to, use the data from that international vendor and then display it. Now, the thing is that vendor, in the way that they have packaged the data, I think I would have hinted to it in the chat a little while ago, that the data itself, they don't want to share it, even though it have an agreement between both to share the information. It's been difficult trying to literally myself being the middleman to digest the information.
Wow.
All right, and then present it to this local vendor for us to use. All right. Now, my thing is that your course, your program, how would that help with me? Because the thing is, I have no soft skills, as you said, or the skill sets, because this is totally new to me. And it takes me hours sometimes just to sit down to sift through the data. Now, we have pressure upon us as the workers in the institution to try and learn the software, which is Tableau.
Right.
And then now match that back to the data from the international vendor against the UI, which we're currently using.
Oh, okay.
All right.
So you're scraping the data and then analyzing it again.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to make sure, there's the OCD in me, trying to make sure, because I used to use Excel to generate my reports, right? And I'm moving from Excel to Tableau, right? And as you said, Excel is a powerful tool. And I am not the best. I don't consider myself a pro in Excel. I would have just inherited the software from one person and learned it on my own in whatever little way, and just basically prepared reports in that all the time. Now we're moving across to Tableau to now visualize that data, and as they say, tell the story and make these reports publishable to our stakeholders. So we just send them a link and they will just run with it accordingly. So we build all the dashboards and they will have the data for them in a way that they could decide what it is they need to do internally. Right. But the thing is, as I said, my challenge is sitting down with the data from the international vendor, which most times comes from an Excel document, and trying to look at these tables and use these tables now to harvest the data and put it into Tableau.
Yeah. There are a couple of things right in Excel that we could use. The data analysis tool pack, that's certainly one. And then of course you have Power Tools in there, you have Power Query in there that you can actually use to automate your analysis. So you don't have to
Yeah, because
redo
we
things
have
over and
pivot
over.
tables that we would normally use inside our Excel.
Yeah. Pivot tables are very useful as well to give you a nice overview of the distinct values, some of the uniqueness, if there are any errors and stuff like that. It's easy to identify things as an overview on pivot tables. Power Query will help you automate these steps. So if you are pulling the same data all the time or the same kind of structured data on most occasions, you could put those steps inside Power Query and you could just dump in new data and Power Query will clean it and prepare it for analysis for you immediately. Yeah, Marlon?
Okay.
Yeah.
So coming back to the program then, is it that you will show us how to go about doing these things within this program?
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. I'm focusing on the practical skills. So the more questions you come with, I can actually come up with exercises to help you and of course help the entire group. So some of these exercises aren't very long. Like you could use the data analysis toolkit and the tool pack. And here what, in 30 seconds, you could get the whole spread of your data. You could get the mean, median, all the range, the standard deviation, everything. So you'll have a general understanding. And then in like 15 minutes, you could probably use Power Query. Once you get used to it, in 15 minutes, you could do the steps and have your prepared data. And it's something that, the next time you have it, all you have to do is dump your data into that same sheet and Power Query prepares it for you immediately. All right. So these are the kinds of things you could do right in Excel to save you time. And Power BI is a nice alternative to Tableau, but I could also do a little session, a small exercise on Tableau, a 20-minute exercise to kind of walk through some of the core things, or half an hour exercise and show you how similar it is to Power BI. So, there are a lot of similarities there.
Because the external vendor, they are trying to move it across the Tableau is a challenge because the thing is that we have to use the calculations that they have trying to figure it out or not. But that's a conversation for.
Yes. No, but don't worry, we'll have a chat, Rodney. It's not a problem. It's not a problem at all. I'll definitely have a chat with you and try to share as much as I could with you and help you out in a sense, yeah? But we will be covering most of those things in this program as well, with the exception of Tableau, but I'll see if I can incorporate it into some of the exercises too, just to give people, a little heads up on Tableau Public, which is the free version. Yeah? Yeah, Marlon.
All right, okay, great, thanks.
No problem, man. Talk to me, Marlon. What's up?
So it's just to jump in on that guy on his query. Basically, I think if you help him clean the data in Python and then export it into a flat file for Tableau or in turn to get it into the data warehouse and then use Tableau on the Tableau and stuff. So
all that could work as well.
And you'll help him figure it out in the Python programming.
It depends on how much records he's pulling at any point in time too. So yeah, we could determine all of that as well. Yeah, man. Thanks for sharing that. Right. So you see, Rodney, you're gonna build a nice little network of people who also in analytics, right? So you'll have a nice little network of resources to tap into, and we could probably build a little community to share advice and share what we're doing. Maybe I could create a group on LinkedIn as well, where those who register will just jump in the group and we could share, stories, achievements, successes, that kind of thing. It'll help everybody drive everybody else, right? Because sometimes you by yourself, you finish and you don't know what to do. You don't know, where next to go and how to continue. So, you can't reach out to me directly, but, we'll also have all our peers. Hey, Alana, how are you doing? Yes, Rodney. Alana, I'm not sure if it's me, but I'm not hearing, breaking up a little bit. Yeah, you guys hearing me?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
are we hearing?
Karen, I've got a question.
Uh-huh. Yes,
We have
Alana.
seen a complete paradigm shift. We have seen a complete paradigm shift in data over, I'd say, over the last 10 years. Still seems to be the tool of choice for a lot of organizations. Do you think that this is going to change? When it is you look at what, even with big, they're still using Excel. Do you think it's going to change soon? And what can we do to push organizations away from using Excel?
Well, what we have to start to do is promote the tools that, because I see a lot of organizations holding back because of, let's say costing and licensing and stuff like that, and even training their staff and getting the skill sets internally to do these things. I think there are actually two things here. One is, one point, Alana, organizations need to see the value of using other tools to really maximize the usage of their data, right? If they are using it at all. But then there's also a second trend that actually could swing everything back towards Excel, because we have the shift now from big data, and I'm hearing the talk over the last 2 years or so, the shift back to small data in terms of contextual data, rather than looking at 20,000 or 200,000 records to get a model built. You could use smaller sets of contextual data that more aligned to the situation, to the industry, etc., that can be used to drive decision making on a smaller scale. And so we have organizations going on both paths, and I think it's more about justifying the value of certain tools and the value of certain skill sets with regard to how quickly certain things could be done that could shift them away from Excel. But also we have to consider the fact that Microsoft may also be, they have also kind of created that easy link, that linkage between Power BI and Excel. So we are seeing the transition into Power BI in most cases because they're already using Microsoft applications. So the learning curve isn't as heavy. So I'm seeing that transition where Microsoft has been kind of urging and pushing users into Power BI rather than telling them don't use Excel. They're kind of saying, hey, we have, look at Power Query. Power Query has been integrated in Excel and is actually a core integration within Power BI. So in terms of the learning curve, it's not much extra to really pick up on. And those are some of the factors, just to keep it concise. So I don't know if you want to add anything more to it, Alana, in terms of some of your perspectives on it.
Nothing else, Karen. It's just that, some of the organizations I have worked for, regardless of how large they are, and regardless of the quantity of data we are using, everything reverts to Excel.
Yeah.
You can do all your analysis in SAS, you can do your analysis from Python, etc., and it all goes back.
I think it's all also tied back to the comfort level with the application, in terms of yeah.
And it's how ubiquitous Excel is. Everywhere you go, they're using Microsoft.
Yes. And some of the stakeholders that might be involved in those projects, they may not even have access to the other tools. So to them, when they get this file, the only file that they could possibly use is really Excel. So it will also be a consideration in terms of the distribution of the software across the organization to the various stakeholders that are involved in that particular process or project. So yeah, these are definitely some of the considerations that have to be made. And if it is we have to share the results of our outcomes with these decision makers, part of that would also be, hey, we need to make decisions on how we're distributing these tools. And that's a heavy part of the governance process in terms of who's making that decision and what is the investment required by the organization to help that. And of course, us justifying the value for it. And I could definitely add some of that to the governance discussion because, deciding which tool, deciding the skill sets required, deciding the people required and the amount, etc. All of that falls back into the governance framework that you'll have to incorporate. And of course, tell the story on, to justify these things, So thanks for sharing that, Alana. And, adding that perspective on top of I got some feedback from someone once where they were talking about analytics sounds like a lot of work. Well, it is if you are a consultant and have to be in every stage, but not every employee involved in data and analytics will be involved in every stage. So I have been involved in every stage, and I know it's a huge process. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of things to do. But you as a professional would not necessarily be throughout, be involved throughout the process. You'll be at certain points, like Rodney here, pulling this data, doing the analysis, sharing it to an extent, but he's not going to be involved in the decision-making process. He's not going to be involved in defining the raw data. He would be extract, transform, load, right? He'll be doing the ETL stuff, the analysis, and then of course, push out whatever he needs to tell the story for his process, right? So we will all be involved in analytics at some point or the other, but having the capability, understanding the tools, and being able to tell the story after you do the analysis, because I've seen so many people fall flat with the storytelling side. But being able to do that and see the outcome of your efforts, I think that's a really good adrenaline boost, a confidence booster as well for everyone. Once you are able to kind of follow through on the process and see decisions being made, positive decisions being made from your work and the efforts that you put into analyzing data. Yeah. Any other thoughts, comments, feedback? Yeah. All right. So thanks a lot, guys, for coming in, being part of the conversation. I will definitely be sharing these slides with you all, as well as, I'll upload the recording and toss it up. And I'd really appreciate, if you know anyone who would, see value or would be interested in registering for a program like this, do certainly share the link with them, share the slides. If you need them to reach out to me in any way, my contact info will be there. So I am certainly open. I want to get as much people covered, involved in this thing, because I really do see the value of it. And I think for most of you all who know me, I'm very, very passionate about data, and I'm very passionate about sharing my knowledge. So feel free to distribute this as much as you could, refer anybody you want to the program, etc. And, I'll truly appreciate it, so that the more we can maximize the value and the outcomes of this effort, it will be really, really much appreciated. So thanks again, everyone, for coming in. And okay, you're welcome, Anna. All right. Yeah, certainly. No, you can message me on LinkedIn, or you could reach out on WhatsApp. That's not a problem. All right. No problems, Rodney. Thanks for coming in. Definitely. Thanks a lot. You're welcome, Simone. Okay, thank you. All right, so yeah, we'll definitely be in touch. I'll shoot out an email afterwards, and we have a month. You'll have a month to decide, where you want to go with the program, if you want to do a part or you want to do everything. And I'll certainly be here to support you all. And let's get this thing going. So take care, everyone. Continue to be safe wherever you are in the world. And yeah, okay, you're welcome. All right, and take care.
Take care. Have a good one, Gary.
You as well.